good day, or greetings rather. Let's not time it. Let's give permission, because permission is the most important aspect of your life currently in the dispensation and in the epoch of time that we live in. Your most important aspect of your life must be to give permission. And it's necessary for you to start recognizing that you need to give permission for many things, not just for a single thing. If you're working with a particular project, I give myself permission for this project to come to wonderful, fruitful completion. I give myself permission to find ways to be able to make this particular project come to fruition. I give myself permission to be pleasantly surprised with the work that I'm busy with. And I give myself permission to receive my highest good, because when you claim your highest good, when you claim your utmost highest best, life needs to comply, because your word is your honor and your word is honored. So I give myself permission to be blessed by life. I give myself permission to feel wonderful and free. I give myself permission to feel loving and lovable. There's so much that you can give yourself permission for. Use it. It's a phenomenal tool, and it really, really works. Since our last session, what can you acknowledge yourself for today? What is there about you that now that you can feel good and satisfied about? That you can just say, you know what, I didn't perhaps achieve XYZ, but I achieved this. Because the mind always pushes you for more. The mind, the way that we are calibrated, the way that we are programmed, the way that we have been negatively reinforced, always makes us feel as if we are just missing the mark. So in other words, it always feels like whatever it is that you're looking for, or that you're yearning for, or that you're striving for, is at your fingertips. It's right here. You can sense it. It's like when you say the word is on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember the name, but you can feel it. You know that, and you just can't express it. You can't feel the word, the actual word, but it's on the tip of your tongue. Just like that, you know that the things that you're working with, projects, clients, new and whatever it is that you're busy with, that is going to generate something for you, that is going to give you something, it always feels like it sits just at the tip of your fingers. You can reach out for it, you can almost touch it, but it just does, you don't have that ability to grasp it so that you can bring it to you. So we want to talk about this morning, because there's a lot of struggle with that in life at the moment, where people are putting so much effort into things and they working towards things, and it never happens the way you think. It never happens the way you think to play out into completion for you, to bring you to that place where you want to be. And sometimes we ask for things and then we get it in a way that is not such a pleasant prospect. It's not such a pleasant way. I can't think of a particular example now, it will come to me, but include even the smallest event or realization when you acknowledge yourself this morning. What can you acknowledge yourself for that you know that you have accomplished, that you have achieved, that feels good and that you can feel satisfied about? Include even the smallest event or realization. Be considerate and be generous. Be considerate and be generous. Expand yourself. Let's look at the word consideration, because consideration and generosity are two very important energies that are currently missing in our world. There's not much consideration and there's not much generosity. Not out there and not for yourself. You don't give yourself much consideration and you're not really very generous with yourself, because of the way that we have been conditioned to think and the way that we're conditioned to process information. So when I looked at the Oxford and I looked at the word consideration, it says thoughtful towards others, careful not to cause hurt or inconvenience, compensation, payment, reward. But interestingly enough, consideration is not mentioned in the context of I need to be considerate with myself. I need to offer myself consideration for my humanness, for the things that I've experienced, for my epigenetics. And there's now a beautiful new word that I've come across by I think she's a neuroscientist, Dr. Tara Swart, and she calls it neuroaesthetics. Very interesting lady to listen to, Dr. Tara Swart. If you can find her on the internet, on YouTube, I suggest that you go and listen to her. She's a South African and she's really, really authentic, beautiful, beautiful to listen to. So consideration says thoughtful towards others, careful not to cause hurt or inconvenience. And then I looked at the word generosity. Generosity is described in the Oxford as magnanimous, abundant, copious, and giving or given freely. So can you now see why these two words are absent, why these two energies are almost absent in our society? Because literally consideration translates into courtesy, manners, poise, grace. And I see mostly in the way that we communicate with each other through the internet, WhatsApp is probably the most frequently and commonly used method to communicate with each other with each other today in all aspects. But even on WhatsApp, you hardly ever see real consideration and generosity in communication. I can send people a message and I can say, how are you? And, they just don't respond. Or, I'll have a very deep conversation with someone and suddenly there's just no response. There's just no reply. And it's a conversation. So it's never brought to completion. It's always just left hanging open. And that is not good energy for our psyche, because our psyche always feels incomplete with such energy. And that's why I always say that WhatsApp is responsible. WhatsApp is a huge pain body for me because of the way that I see people treat each other on that platform. It also becomes a pain body for me in the consideration that I receive. So today I invite you to allow your active imagination to create circumstances in your life as you want them to be. Now, Dr. Carl Gustav Jung, and I'm so grateful that I found some wonderful conversations of Dr. Carl Gustav Jung on the internet. Recently, it's coming to me as shorts. It found me. I didn't go look for it, and it's just wonderful to listen to him. And he says that, with active imagination, because the word active imagination was phrased by Dr. Carl Gustav Jung. It originates with him. And when he says that when you apply active imagination, it is so powerful that there is no way that it's not going to manifest your life. However, even when I was in the masterclass, the Jung depth psychology studies that we did over many years together, even my lecturer in Jung masterclass, Stephen Farrer, is a worldwide renowned Jungian depth psychology and studied depth psychology for many, many years. He also says that with active imagination, he has changed his own life. And he constantly said, be aware if you use it, because it really, really works. So why do we need to create active imagination, to utilize it? So, we all have the ability to imagine, but what is active imagination? It's really so that you can see and celebrate your growth. Because I asked you now, I said, consider since the last time you sat with me in Energizer, what can you acknowledge yourself for? What is there about you that you now feel good and satisfied about? Because you need to be able to bring closure to what you feel satisfied about so that you can grow, so that you can build on previously achieved novelties. Be very careful that you not become trapped in the clutches of more. More. M-O-R-E. More. Be very careful that you do not become trapped in the clutches of more. More is a bottomless hole, a pit, a hole, a black hole. It can never be filled to enough. It never knows the feeling, the energy, the vibration, the frequency of contentness, of feeling satisfied, of feeling peace, of feeling inner peace, because more will never allow you to feel at peace. It is a restless, unsatisfied, unquenchable energy that stirs in you consistently if you are not aware. When you consistently long for more, it becomes a deep, deep yearning that is not satisfied with anything. It doesn't matter what you achieve. It doesn't matter what you accomplish. It doesn't matter in what your current life conditions and your circumstances are. It might not be ideal, but I can tell you now that it is 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times better than 85% of people that live on planet Earth. Because we are so blessed. We are so blessed with so much. But more, the need to have more, it becomes a deep yearning that is not satisfied with anything. No matter what you offer it, it doesn't feel satisfied. You can be in a relationship and you'll think, is this the good relationship? What if there's more? I will get to that, Stanley. Thank you for that question. There's this because now you have to see that there's a big difference between more and growth. Because the context is lost. The concept is more, but the context is lost because we are now associating more with the need for growth. Growth does not necessarily put more things in your hand. Growth is not about stuff. It's not, the tree is not thinking, let me grow more leaves. Let me count the leaves on my branches, and I've now got 1,000,000 leaves, and I want more leaves, so I need 50,000 more leaves, and then I'll be a beautiful tree. No, the tree grows. It's not counting the leaves on its branches. It's not counting the number of apples in the season. It's not counting how many apples Pete has taken from the tree. It's not counting how many fruits someone comes and picks. It just blooms and it bears fruit. It's not interested in more. More, just like the energy or the thing that we call money, more and money is in relationship. So the energy of money and the energy of more is the same thing. So it is so important for your experience as a human being to give yourself permission to feel satisfied. Feeling satisfied means that you can feel the consideration and generosity that life demands of us. Life demands of us to have consideration and generosity. It's not if or maybe. The tree needs to be considerate of the seasons. The tree needs to be generous in the way that it produces fruit. If it doesn't, it gets removed, it gets cut off, it gets cut down, it gets burnt on the heap, it's set alight. Even in the Holy Scriptures, it says when the tree bears no fruit, it is chopped down, it is taken out, it has no right to exist. So no matter what you accomplish, this thing called more tells you that you are still falling short, that it's not enough. And not enough becomes the anthem of your life. I'm not good enough. I don't give enough. I never have enough. And then comes the refrain, because there's a very quick way in which a part of you, an archetype of you, will pick up on the more, and it will start singing the same little phrases, and it will ask you the same questions over and over again. That's where you need to become aware. That's where you need to see, because it's those questions that takes you into a state of depression, of not knowing. So reality offers very little consideration and generosity at present. Reality meaning the everyday life that we live, because life and reality is not the same thing. Life has been on this planet, has been around on this planet for billions of years. Life has been around on planet Earth for more than what our mind can perceive. But reality, the reality that we live today, the reality where you are sitting right at this moment, is only experienced by you and the people that share that reality. And even if we put 5 people in the same room who live in the same house, who share the same experiences every day, each one will live in a different reality. That's how it was designed. So reality offers very little consideration and generosity at present. All around you, daily occurrences. Just look, you can see very little consideration extended at all levels of life. So here we go not just from the realities, the microcosms that we live, but we're now looking at life, which is the macrocosm. So at all levels of the microcosm, there's no generosity, but life itself is exceptionally generous. When you have the ability to receive, life itself is exceptionally generous. It's more than considerate of you. Because if it wasn't, none of us would be here, just because of the thoughts that we think. If life had to respond to all the thoughts that you think, the earth would no longer be here. We would have destroyed it long ago. But fortunately, in reality, the basic creation of life, as you sow, you shall reap, that no one is exempt of. So that applies in every single reality. And that's really the only guarantees that we have in life, is to go and look at the basic laws that created life itself. There we can find security, and there we can find safe. We can feel safe. And there we will be considered to the utmost, to the extreme, when we honor those creation laws, because they protect you. They protect you so that you don't have to fall into the trap of more. So all around you, your daily occurrences, you can see very little consideration extended. And when consideration is absent, there is no available place for the energy of consideration to connect. So if there's no consideration in our daily realities, life does not have the ability to connect with consideration and generosity for you, because there's no place to receive it, because it must be like attracts like. So there must be a place of consideration for consideration to come in. There must be a place of generosity for generosity to come in. And that is the way it was created, because it protects the sacredness of things. So in the sacredness, in the vibration and the frequency of that which is sacred and that needs to be honored. All that other stuff can't come in there because to destroy it, it will remain sacred. So it's when the vibration and the frequency is reduced by the absence of consideration and generosity, then we need to revert, we need to default into reassurance and appreciation. But I'll get to that a bit later. So when generosity dies, all that is left in any situation where generosity died, all that is left is greed. And it's the greed that constantly drives the more. There's a greed, and an insatiable greed that just wants more and more and more. And when you encounter this more energy, there is a nagging feeling that you will come to an end, that somehow you will cease to exist, that you will be overcome, that you will that it will mean your end. Something, somehow everything will cease if there is not more. If I don't have this more in the bank for when I'm 60 or when I'm 100, I will cease to exist. I won't be able to function. I won't be able to take care of myself. And this energy creates the inflation we experience in the world. Because that's why we see everything increasing, because of this need for more. Because the more has now become its own enemy. So it constantly generates on itself. And that's why we have this fear, because we see this process, but we don't see it in the proper context and why it was created. Because there is no generosity. There is only the need for more. So our incessant fear and anxiety about more is creating the actual lack. So because this more we chase is not part of the natural progression and growth of life, because every moment offers you enough. Just look at your life. Because if you stay in this moment, which is the only place that we have to live, and I know it by now, it feels like a cliche to the psyche. Oh my God, don't go to the power of now again, and don't tell me about this moment again, because he does that to us. It's like, but it doesn't really take any cognizance of what we're saying. But our incessant fear and anxiety about this more, about this is the generator of this lack. And because this more that we chase is not part and it's not part of the creation, the natural progression and growth of life, because every moment offers you enough. And every day you have enough. It might not be a blueprint or an exact picture of what you're holding yourself ransom for in what your life should be, which is a complete illusion anyway, because you should rather become considerate and feeling the generosity towards yourself for what you've already accomplished, and I asked you for 2 weeks, what can you honor yourself for that you have accomplished since you've last sat here in the space listening to the words that I share with you, that I'm guided to share with you. Every day is enough. Look back upon your life. You could have gone through the depths of despair. You could have gone through days where there's more, where the need to have for tomorrow has driven you almost over the edge. That you felt that you're going to become insane, that you're going to lose your mind, because there was no way that this more would allow you to feel that you're going to be able to take care of yourself tomorrow. But you know that tomorrow, when you get to tomorrow, it's also today. There's no tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't exist until you've lived it. And it doesn't matter what you think, what tomorrow is going to do to you because you don't have more. You're gonna live tomorrow. And whatever tomorrow holds for you to experience, you will have to experience no matter whether you have more or not. Excuse me. Every day is enough. And according to the way that you sow, the way that you plant the seeds of generosity in your life, the way that you give back to life with your energy, with your aliveness, with your zest, with your satisfaction, with your content, because nothing good can be created out of mayhem and misery. And that's the chaos that forces the change on the earth. Because the primary motivator on earth for change is conflict. It has been that way since the beginning. You will also be in conflict with yourself. It's the same, it's as above, so below. So the bigger picture on the earth for change is constant conflict. You will not escape it. But it's the way in which you manage the conflict, because the conflict in you is only created by the need for more. At some level, you can bring it down to its most common denominator. And I'm telling you now, you'll always end up with it's not enough. There needs to be more. I must be more beautiful. I must lose more weight. I must have, more curly hair. I must have a more luxurious vehicle. I must have a bigger house. It's always about the more. And according to your sowing, because your planting of the neuroseeds, they are planted in your brain. They're neural seeds. Your neural pathways are the furrows that water the seeds, that takes the nutrition to the seeds that you've planted. The neural pathways in your brain is what constantly reminds you that somehow, somewhere, you must be more. You know, children in school, they come home with their report at the end of the semester. Many parents will say to their children, "You got 98%. Why didn't you get 100?" Not having consideration for what the child went through to get the 98%. But why can't you, the more? And the incessant thoughts of more, and the false belief that in order to deal with tomorrow, you must have more. In order to deal with tomorrow, you must open. You must open to receive what you have worked for, what you have sown through your consideration and generosity for everything in your life, for the responsibilities that you've taken on. We bring children into the world, we take responsibility for children, we've got to raise them. It's not possible to have children and to, forget about them and let somebody else take care of them and raise them. No, they're your children. They need you to raise them. For 21 years of my life, I did not commit to anything for myself. My first priority and my first consideration was always my mother and my son. If I didn't like the job that I was doing, too bad. I needed to make sure that I provide for my family because I said I would. I said I would when I brought a child into the world. There's no exception for that. And I need to be generous with myself because I also need to see what it is that I'm going through in order to deliver all this. This world that we live in is not an easy place. It's a shithole. And really, it's a cesspit. And most of the time, and 99.9% of people on the earth truly only learn how to dodge the turds. You never taught how to take yourself out of the cesspit. You just shown how to keep your nose above water. That's why you're so ensconced into this more thing, because you have not even attempted to take yourself out of the cesspit. And it's a communal cesspit. All the thoughts of the planet, all the actions, all the results, all the consequences, everything, the wars, the atrocities, the human trafficking, the sex rings with pedophilia, all of that is in the cesspit. It's in this internet where we're sitting now. It's in this is such a big infinity of energies that's all together. Now you must learn to extrapolate yourself from that, because you need to honor yourself. You need to look at yourself with consideration and generosity for what you represent as a human that could possibly be totally different from the rest of the world. And then you start feeling honored. You start feeling privileged to feel this, being this different. That you can actually feel so different that there's no ways that you can get into that cesspit. Because let me tell you something. If I had to take you by the hand this morning and I took you to such a cesspit, let's say it's a pool the size of the ocean. No? But it's almost what we're doing to the ocean already. It's full of sewage, it's full of plastic, it's a cesspit. And I tell you to jump in there, and I say to you, this is now where you're supposed to live your life daily. Because that's what the consciousness looks like. What would you say to me? You would say to me that, are you crazy? I'm not doing that to myself. But in your thoughts, and in your thinking, and in the way that you drive the energy, the power that has been laid in your hands to use active imagination to create a life with consideration and generosity, not only for yourself, but for the planet. That you start thinking in ways that don't just think of, oh, I don't have a relationship, oh, I don't have my own house, oh, I don't have this. Do something. If you want a relationship, first realize that you need to be content. You need to be generous and considerate with who you are to yourself first. Consideration and generosity is what you want in a relationship with a partner. If you're not going to give it to yourself, you're not going to have it in your relationship, because there's no place for it to come to. And consideration and generosity is a courtesy, and it's an ownership, and it's an acceptance of your responsibility, of what you want to be, in order to resonate with that energy, and to not only resonate with it, but to constantly share it, so that you become immune to more. You become immune. More does not have a place to dock on you like a big spaceship. There's no place for this energy called more to dock and to allow whatever's inside that vehicle to come into you. It docks, and then they get off this thing, and then like an illness, and it infests you. No, do the work. Someone said in my group the other day, I'm so glad that I'm doing the work. And that doesn't just mean that you need to sit in church every Sunday, or you need to be in a specific place. Do the work. Do what needs to be done in order for your life to work. Not these illusions of grandeur that is driven by more. Life is not going to respond to that energy. I'm telling you now. And that's why you feel that things are just sitting at the tip of your fingertip. It's right here, but I just can't grasp it. And I want it so much. What is it then? Here comes the questions now. You see, that becomes the measurement. That becomes the way that you measure your life. What's wrong with me? Why can't I have somebody to love me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I make my business work? What's wrong with me? Why doesn't a lot of people want to be with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't this happen this way? But you are so ignorant of the energy that you're already generating on such a massive level because of your consciousness, because of who you authentically be. And that energy, when you become in you, and Dr. David Hawkins says, when you calibrate at such a high level, the average of the earth is 270. The average for Africa is only 80. And the real average at which we should calibrate is 500 and above. When you start calibrating at this high level, meaning, high is just the context in which we think, so we can actually, give ourselves at least the ability to relate. But the higher consciousness is the ability to remove yourself from the cesspit of more. Do the work. When you work, you get. It's the way it works here. When you work, you get. And when you get, you give. Because the more you get, the more you can give. And I said to someone the other night, and I had such a beautiful illustration of it. I must go look for it. I don't know where. It's just like a little comic sketch of a man with bags and bags of money. And as he's giving out the money, the bags are getting emptier and emptier until there's nothing left. And he stands with this perplexed look on his face, like now he's got nothing because he's given it all away. And then you see the same man giving love, and you see these big hearts coming out of his heart, and how he's giving. And what happens out there is the hearts are just growing. That's growth versus more. And that energy is just growing and growing. And in that energy, the consideration and generosity of life can find you. And that's when your life just becomes effortless. Really, it really, I always thought, and I even said so when I was away this weekend, I said, not in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would be able to ride on such a safari vehicle in such a grand, privately owned game, environment, a concession. I don't know what they call it. It's like open to the Kruger, the greater Kruger. So there's the big five, if you see everything, because the animals can roam as they want. And, to just transverse and just drive around in that bush, in that environment, and seeing the raptors and the birds. And actually we saw a whole herd of lion, not a pride of lion, chasing a herd of old buffalo. They call them Duggar boys. And I always see this on the internet, but I never thought that I would be able to experience that, because in my mind, I needed a lot more than what I have now in order to get to that place, because I always thought that, that kind of private lodge experience is only for the super wealthy, for the super rich. It's not in my league. Not because I'm not considering myself. It's just something that I didn't choose to actually create for myself, because I certainly have the ability, but I opt for a simple life. But in any case, the more reminded me, it's told me, you can forget it. You'll never be able to experience that. By whose authority? What authority does that fucking voice have to tell me that? Because of this thing called more and this thing called money that I need to have in order to have that experience? No, it is an experience that I can have even if I don't have what is called money. I wouldn't want to invest that level of, or make that level of investment to experience it anyway, even if I could afford it. No? So can you see the example? And I still said it on the game drive to the owner, because the owner of the establishment was driving the safari vehicle, and I was sitting right behind him, and I said to him, it's the most wonderful feeling of satisfaction, and to know I'm sitting 1.5 meters away from a wild lion in the bush in an open vehicle. And they're active. They're not lying. They're not flat cats. They were active. They were standing up and they were running through the bush at about 6 in the morning. A huge pride. So can you see it? I didn't need the more to have the experience. The experience came to me because I resonate with consideration and generosity. And therefore, life will always provide me with consideration and generosity. And then I asked myself, why am I by myself? Why am I not in a relationship with someone? Because it's also, I'm being considerate and generous with myself. Because when I am in relation with someone, my life so far hasn't worked. It's been a cesspit. And I'd rather have my life to work. And therefore, I know that out of consideration and generosity for myself, if this is meant, it will find me. I'm not going to sit every day and punish myself with thoughts of more, that my life will be so much more if I had someone to share it with. No, not at all. I'm celebrating every day and every moment because it's enough. But you must, do the work. What you worked for. Work is the absolute. And do the work. And when you work, you get, and you get so much. You get so more than what your consciousness can even understand. Because understanding is your other problem. It's more and understand. Because I must understand why I don't have more. Because, in my logic, this and this and this and this makes sense for me. No, it's not. Life is not determined by your logic and by your understanding and by your need for more. But you need to know this morning, at this time, I'm almost finished. You need to know that your life is enough. And connect with that every day and give yourself permission to know that your life is enough. And do not trust the process, but to trust the flow. Because I've also said recently that trust the process has become such a cliche. The psyche goes, yeah. Because your psyche is very often your enemy. And it's ruthless. It will destroy you. It's not going to spare you. And that's why Dr. Jung says, you need to get to know yourself. Otherwise, you're going to live in a very dark world. Because when the shadow takes over, the world is dark. That's pure psychology, depth psychology. Going deep. You don't spare yourself. Our Jung masterclass lecturer used to say, if you're not bleeding onto the page, don't bother. If you write this, you bleed onto the page. Otherwise, it's not enough. In other words, it's not about more. It's about the growth that you're going to receive because you give so much more, because you are so generous. That's the way that more applies. Not in the way that we apply more. It applies in the way that you discover that you have so much more to give to yourself and to life. And when you give, you get. So work for your freedom. Work for your financial freedom. Work to experience the life that you want. And sometimes the work means that you've got to do things that you really don't like. It's not about liking it. It's not about being nice. It's not about doing the things that feel nice, because then you pay the price. It's not this earth. That's why I took myself off all platforms where I'm supposed to be liked. And I know that it's the same with YouTube, but thank God I'm not there for likes. I'm there to provide a service, and it's not about the likes. And it will not be a place where a lot of people will frequent, because they love the cesspit. They love living in a space of poor me, because, they don't get it, that they need to be considerate and generous for life to care for them. They want to be in the cesspit and do the work, because people who are in the cesspit mostly are very lazy. They don't want to do the work. They don't like to work in circumstances or doing things that doesn't feel nice, that they don't like. So if you're not working, you are not aligned to receive. So if you're not working, you are not aligned to receive. And work means consideration and generosity for the result, because the work must provide you with self-sufficiency. You must be able to look after yourself. You must be able to be independently provided for in everything that you need to do, because that's your responsibility. Life does not support passengers. Humans created buses. There's no buses in nature. The only time that anything is carried by anything is when they are infants, and mostly only in the insect world, not anywhere else. You know, with fishes and with where they're tiny little things, they are carried by their parent for a while. When you are not working, you are not aligned to receive. You must sow to reap. There's no exception to that. If you are receiving things that you haven't worked for, that you haven't sown, there's going to be a very big chance that you won't be able to slot into the resonance of generosity, because generosity can only bless you when there's a source here. Yeah, must be a source of the giving. And work is your imagination. It is your attitude. It is your moods. Your moods give meaning to your experience of this life. Your moods are mostly driven by the more. You'll see, your moods, and especially the cesspit moods, the moods that take you into the cesspit, the depression, the overwhelm, however it's me, and, comparison, because that's one of the biggest sources of more. It's like its best buddy, comparison. Comparisonitis, actually. When you have comparisonitis, oh my God, you're constantly suffering from the whip of called more. Cat o' seven tails, or cat o' nine tails, what do they call it when they whip themselves till they bleed? Huh? The not enoughness of your moods. We hardly ever think of excitement or enthusiasm as a mood, or even an attitude. If you're excited and enthusiasm, you don't say, oh, I'm in such an enthusiastic mood today. You just feel flipping great, and you just live it. And when you're in that space, there's nothing that can faze you. You're not interested in hearing the word, the constant cesspit voice of more. You don't even entertain it. It's feeling fabulous. You're feeling fabulous. It's an attitude that's invincible. Your moods are the reason why you feel so down, why you feel so overwhelmed, why you feel so hopeless and depressed, by what you can't have, by what you don't have. Have. The things that you have that will allow you to be. That's when you become, excuse me, my throat even closes up when I'm talking about this. And I forgot to deposit a drink here for myself. So now I must make it work. I can't allow this voice now to let me down at the last fight, like the end is in sight, the end of the race feeling when we just want to give up. No, voice. Just keep going for me, please. So your moods are your feeling. When you're feeling down, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you feel so depressed, when you feel so useless and so insignificant and so totally inadequate, to manifest the more, you become embraced by struggle and by misery. And your experience of this life will deteriorate daily. It will deteriorate daily. You will feel how you're going down. It's a downward spiral, deeper and deeper into the cesspit. And that's why COVID is a lung disease, because it feels like we're going underwater and you can't breathe. That's what the panic attack feels like. It's, when people go into anxiety, and there are lots of people having panic attacks. And what the panic attack feels like is you can't breathe because you're underwater. Now, the truth of the matter is you can breathe underwater because you breathed in your mother's womb. The water was in your lungs and you were alive. You can breathe underwater. It's just a mental construct that was given to you as a division. And everywhere you hear now, the veil is thinning, the veil is thinning, the veil is thinning. It's not about the veil thinning. It's about you liberating yourself from the torment and from the sentence and from the punishment of more. The whole world is directed at more. That's why you've got budgets. That's why you've got goals, because it's always about more. Shift from more into growth from today, so that you no longer need to be embraced by some form of struggle because of what you have to give up or what you don't have. And I said to a client yesterday, it's because you feel cheated by life. Cheated out of what you should be having. And she was upset with me. She said, I don't feel cheated about anything. I said, no, it's not an accusation. But you feel cheated. You feel cheated because you are in comparisonitis with what you see in the world and what you deem you should have, which is more than what you've got now. Even Bridget is going, can you hear how she's agreeing? Can't order that. So, your experience of this life, refuse for it to deteriorate. Refuse, because some mornings you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be immersed in the cesspit. You didn't even do it yourself. Overnight, while you were sleeping, your consciousness was just taken and dragged and thrown into the cesspit by your dreams, by your subconscious mind, by your unconscious. And there's a universal consciousness as well, that in which all the archetypes exist, in which we entrap our own consciousness in the way that we behave, the way that we do life. It's an archetypal compulsion. There's many names for it, and there's it can be a neurosis even, or a psychotic episode where people just completely go off the rails because of the more that they feel that they can't achieve, and then the complete panic sets in, and in that panic nothing can happen. Excuse that noise, we'll just put it to the back. Here we go. Right, that's my story. Now you may ask, how am I going to liberate myself from this more? Because you shift into growth and you allow yourself to grow, because you are considerate and generous with yourself by acknowledging your own accomplishments and just how great thou art, how great the things are that you're already bringing to life, that you give life, that you share with your consciousness. And if you are not doing any of that, you better start, because then you're doing yourself a great injustice. And there's a lot of people in the world that will give themselves the justification of ill health. I have a friend who died after 17 operations on her body. The 17th operation, she died. And she died while she was unconscious with a huge dose of morphine to dull the pain. There's no way to dull the pain, because more comes with very deep and profound pain. Sometimes a pain that you can't even explain. Sadhguru also says, choose Misery or bliss? You choose, with consideration and generosity to what you're doing to yourself and what you subject yourself to. And I'm not sitting here preaching to you because I do the same. I'm not kind to my body. Not at all. I realized it in the last week, how unkind I've become to my body and how I punish my body daily, my physical body. And it just continues to serve me without any conditions. Its consideration of me is complete. And its generosity too. And it's operating for me under the most severe circumstances. The stress I'm subjecting it to, the anxiety some days, the overwhelm, the total uselessness that I feel for myself and my life. For no reason, because that's how it feels here. Not because there's something wrong with me, but because I need to understand that I'm on earth. And I now need to accept that I'm human and that I'm here to learn and that I can do this. You've been doing it so far, your life is proof of it. Might not be the way you think you should be having it as more, but you're doing life. And if you're really honest with yourself, you have an impact with your life. Just in what you offer people to experience. Maybe not directly, but by your own consideration and generosity with the tools, with the means that you've been given to create your life with. And then just remember that currently the greatest generator of income on the earth is scamming. It's not work for it, it's steal for it. That's the greatest generator of income, of money. Not income, but money, of more. Some people are scammed out of their entire life earnings. The one who's doing the scamming doesn't care that that person might not even have a home or food or anything. They just want more. So consider the kind of energy in which you live every day, in which you want to create consideration and generosity. It's not going to be an easy task, but it's effortless. Trust yourself and give permission for wonderful things to happen in your reality, because it's like, unfortunately the same applies. It's like a rotten apple. It will make all the apples rotten. But if you take the rotten apple away and you wash all the other apples and you dry them nicely and you put them back, and even if you keep them in the fridge, they'll last for months. When there's no rot amongst it, it endures. Amazingly so. Good. So, in closing, I want you to close your eyes just for a moment. And I want you to embrace the energy of reassurance and appreciation into your life, into this moment. Because in order to achieve consideration requires a lot of reassurance. How can you possibly reassure yourself, you ask, when you constantly look at what needs to be more? What is not enough? Look at what it does to your mood, your zest of life, your zest for life is destroyed. It's so easy to feel unlovable. It's so easy to feel overlooked and excluded, because what you already have is never enough. But surrender now. Give your life a chance. Do the work. Do the work that is required of you, that you know this is work I need to do. because of who you choose to be, your authenticity. Authenticity is the number one agreement that you have with yourself. And a wonderful master teacher of mine, Stanley Beckett, teaches in his philosophy that authenticity is the number one agreement that you should have with yourself, because that determines your true colors. That determines the consideration for self. And be generous with appreciation for what you already have, for what you're already enjoying, for what you already have the privilege to experience every day. Doesn't matter how simple, how frugal that needs to be. Let me tell you, the more frugal you are now in life, the more wealthy you are, the more rich you are. Your potential, yes, your potential is an ever-present reality. And explore and benefit from that. Don't let it become a more, but let it become potential realized. And potential realized is a moment of glory. And then you move on. There is such an enormous difference between more and growth. Enormous. Growth is an absolute for life, to thrive and to continue and to be the best that you can be, to receive your highest good, but also to give it. Growth is not the same as more. The tree grows in the abundance it is presented with. It's not operating with more or with more than. Must have more than my friend next door. Synchronize with life today. Give yourself permission to be a complete and utter considerate and generous participant with the flow of life. With synchronicities is the language of truth. And connect with this through your environment, because you love your life. Why? Because you created it by your choices. So that is my story for today. Thank you so much for sharing this few moments with me in eternity, to come and explore the options that we have to live a good life. Because reality is shit, but life is good. Have a wonderful, wonderful time until I see you the first Sunday of November. Thank you for your presence, everyone. It was so good to see all of you.